Hey, girl pal. Welcome to another episode of Wisdom and Wellness. Today is one of those where I am alone. You guys said you like them, so I am back. I'm back with another episode alone. In case you haven't noticed, I have a semi-new set. Not a new set, but like I've got a new comfortable couch from Zorora. Thank you so much for providing this beautiful, comfortable couch where I can finally put my feet up. My feet are up. I've got my blanket. I've got space. Gumnandi. It's nice. So that's great. I do have a discount code for you guys. I will link all details at the bottom. So what are we talking about today? Guys, I have been in a this year, man. Just when you think, I catch an exhale, something happens. And so I'm reading this book that's talking about basically learning to rest through it all. And I think we all kind of feel like that. I think I've met so many people who are just feeling overwhelmed and we're all looking for an escape. But then I'm starting to realize that life is not going to slow down. We are going to have to slow it down ourselves. Because if we're not dealing with sick parents, people losing people, us losing people, deadlines, work, this, that, there's just so much happening, but we have to be intentional about finding the joy in the moments. So today I wanted to talk about who am I outside of my roles? And this podcast was actually inspired by another podcast that I was listening to, where she was inspired by a post about who am I outside of motherhood, right? And so it really stood out for me because to a certain extent, I have been feeling a very big desire and need to really slow down, and specifically slow down in my work. Not necessarily stop. I don't want to stop. I'm very excited. I love my work. I love everything that I do. But to just slow down. So I think I've spoken a lot about my personality, that I am quite a go person. I love having projects. I love being busy. I love doing stuff. I love being innovative. And, it's the beginning of the year. So most times I still have a lot of energy to do a lot of stuff. But lately I've been feeling the need to just rest and slow down. And even I think my appetite for social media has greatly declined for a lot of reasons, but just being present in my life. And I think, one of the big reasons is I think once I took my kids out of social media, I realized how much more I enjoyed motherhood, how much more I enjoyed them, how much more I enjoyed the not having to put on, having to capture, having to be politically correct, having to adjust myself as a mother or adjust my children. I was like, oh my gosh, this is nice. And I started taking more and more things offline, including my relationship with my husband, where it's similar things, where it's just like, this is so much better offline. And so slowly I'm like, geez, if I'm no longer sharing those things online, then what is my role here on specifically Instagram, Twitter? I'm just really just like, no, not going there, okay, TikTok, I enjoy the consumption of it. I enjoy the jokes. I really love good TikTok jokes and all the psychology vibes. But on Instagram, like, okay, what is my role here? Like, what am I adding? So back to who am I outside of my roles? Who am I outside of motherhood? Who am I outside of being a wife? Who am I outside of my work? Because I think a lot of us are defined by our work. I am defined a lot by my work, which I don't mind. But what happens when you get tired? So before I get into that, I'm reading this book. I forgot the author's name, but it's called The Things You Can See Only When You Slow Down. Picked this book at the airport. We were coming back from Cape Town, so we took a short lift to Cape Town, my husband and I, just to have a little staycation. We were tired. We were burnt out. We just needed to go and go sleep in a different city, guys. I've seen something when someone was like, sometimes you just need to take a flight to go have lunch in like Durban or whatever. And we did that. We took a flight. We went to go sleep in Cape Town, just focused on us. It was just me and him. And then we came back at the airport. I got this book, the things you can see only when you slow down. So I wanted to read this little quote, or passage rather, that I found that really stood out for me as I was reading it on the flight. And he says, if we know how to be content, we can relax our endless striving and welcome serenity. If we know how to be content, we can enjoy the time we have with the person next to us. If we know how to be content, we can make peace with our past and let go of our baggage. And then he later shares in another passage that I wrote down, he says, a question to ask yourself is, do I have to live my whole life like this? Whew. And when that question came, I was like, I had to think about my life right now. I think I'm really blessed. I think my life is very beautiful. I enjoy my life. I don't desire anybody else's. I'm happy with my life. But then I had to think, I'm like, okay, do I have to live my whole life like this? Do I want to live my whole life like this? Do I enjoy having my life like this? And then I realized that actually I am always in a rush, always going to the next thing. And going back to this passage, and I realized that maybe there's a lack of being content, and that's why I can't find serenity. So it's like, okay, now that I've done this, we can do that and so much more. And I realized that in this season of my life, I don't want to be working every weekend. In this season of my life, I don't want to be doing a lot. In this season of my life, I want to water my garden every afternoon. So by 5 p.m., I want to be watering my garden every afternoon. I want to go to plant shops and nurseries on Saturday morning. I want to have more time for my friends. And then it gets confusing. And that's the question of who am I outside of my roles? Because there's certain seasons where I didn't have time for those things and I outsourced those things and I was happy to outsource those things. And I was like, guys, outsource everything you don't have time for, and 100% believe in that. But now I'm like, maybe those things that I outsourced actually brought me joy. Like watering my own garden actually brings me joy. It brings me serenity. It brings me contentment. It slows me down. So, all this to say is that I think sometimes in efforts to really chase after the next, go after this big thing, make our dreams come true, we tend to lose, and not intently so, we tend to lose the essence of the things that bring us that contentment, that keep us still. It's like, when last did you just sit next to your partner, your spouse, and just sit, and that's what you're doing? We're not watching anything, we're not on our phones, we're not doing an activity, but just to be present with the person you're with. And that's what motherhood offline has done for me. I get to be so present with my kids and I enjoy it so much. So I want more of that. And I think even in my work now, I'm enjoying the behind the scenes more, which is so crazy because I'm like, I love shooting podcasts, I love being in front of the camera, but man, I'm enjoying being behind the scenes. So what does that mean for me? Um and then what else? In my relationships, I'm showing up so much more differently. And back to what the book is about, I'm realizing that I'm finding out these things about me, or embracing these things about me, because I have stopped I've embraced rest more, and that's why I can realize, oh, okay, these are the missing pieces of my life. Back to, do I have to live my life like this? I've had to question a lot of things. I've had to say no to a lot of things. I'm having to say no to a lot of things and having the discipline to say no. It's one thing, guys, to have discipline and not do stuff because the opportunities are just not there. It's one thing to not get into more, to not have more, to not do more because there just isn't that opportunity. And then there comes a time in your life when you have to be disciplined enough to say, just because I can and just because the opportunity is presented to me does not mean that I should say yes. And that's difficult. And that's when self-awareness comes in play, where you have to sit with yourself, that is this really aligned with who I am or who I'm trying to be? Or am I going back into a cycle of just doing, 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 doing? So, yeah. And then another thing I wanted to touch on is the importance of community. And I think I spoke about this in my previous episode, but it's clearly such an important aspect of my life right now. And obviously, the podcast and my conversation will always be based on what's happening in my life right now. And starting from Sunday Nuggets. So, by the time you see this podcast, it would have been a week or two ago. I had a very tight deadline. I've been working on something very important, and it's consumed me, completely consumed me. Love it, enjoy it, but consumed me and has exhausted me amongst many other things. And on Saturday night, I sent, firstly on Friday, I sent my team, a message. I'm like, hey guys, please send suggestions for Sunday nuggets, which is something I never do because I'm normally very inspired and I'm in it and I write as I get inspired. But I was like, hey, I am blank. Let me ask the team what they want to hear. Maybe they've picked up something. Let me ask them. So they sent all their suggestions, some brilliant, good suggestions. I'm like, thanks, guys. Good shot. I've got this. And then Saturday, I am literally buried in my house, busy. Sunday, same thing. Oh no, on Saturday, at least got to go to Pappuccino's. Free plug for Pappuccino's, guys. Got to go to Pappuccino's, spend time with the kids, an hour or two, then went back home. They went to play, and I continued with what I was doing. Sunday morning comes, and I'm like, you know what? I have to learn to disappoint other people. Because I think when it comes to like, there's certain aspects of my life where I just will give myself up instead of disappointing someone. And I have started to weigh the options. Like, if I disappoint this person, how detrimental is it? Like, what is the long term cost? Or what is the long term cost of disappointing myself? Because if you're constantly pleasing other people, you're constantly disappointing you, right? That's the whole cost of being a people pleaser, is that you do something that will make another person happy, but then you continue to violate your boundaries or yourself. And I'm not saying we should be selfish people, but there's moments where you're just like, oh, I'm in a predicament now. Who do I choose? Do I choose my needs or do I choose the needs of other people? And more so than not, we choose the needs of other people, which is great. But there's times where you really need to choose yourself. Otherwise, you get burnt out. That's what happens to our mothers and our aunts and our grandmothers, is that they constantly sacrifice themselves for other people. And then they became miserable. And we don't want to be those people who are exhausted simply because we cannot say no, right? So anyway, I wake up on Sunday and I'm like, I am exhausted. I have no creativity, and I have not finished my project that I need to finish and submit for my deadline. And I sent a message and I said, I've never done this before. We always plan for our breaks. So our breaks are never random. It's not like we just decide, hey, we're not posting. It's always very well planned, that, okay, this is an intentional sabbatical, intentional break. And I was like, you know what? Today I am going to let my girl pals down. But you know what? I would encourage them to do the same in this situation. So I'm going to do that. So I send a message and I say, hey guys, hey girl, Sunday nuggets are not happening. And this is where this made me so emotional, where my team said, don't worry about it. We got you. And that we got you came with so much peace, because when they did show up in the Sunday nuggets, it was in such an exceptional and excellent way, where you know that this was a sacrifice on their end. This took it took their Sunday away. It took their time, their creativity, their family time, and they did it wholeheartedly. And I realized, I'm like, I can't believe I almost sacrificed giving my heart and opening myself up again to people, to friendship, and being vulnerable. Because ultimately, when you continue to be vulnerable and open yourself up to people, you're saying, I am giving you the permission to hurt me. That is real friendship. That is real vulnerability. When you let people into your heart, you say, I love you. I want you in my heart, but because I'm letting you in, you can hurt me. Because when we have walls, when we don't let people in or close to our hearts or let them know what's happening, our emotions, we literally say, you don't have permission to hurt me. So that's why strangers can hurt you, but not as badly as people close to you, because you're literally saying, I'm giving you permission to be the one to hurt me. You can decide to do it. So anyway, I've been hurt a lot. I've hurt a lot. And at some point I closed up my heart and then I decided, you know what, I'm actually going to open my heart again. I love having relationships. I love having community. I love having people and I love being vulnerable. And to just see it pay off is loosely used because it sounds like a transaction. It's not a transaction, but to just see the fruits of real relationship where there's vulnerability and there's room to be, there's room to support each other, there's room to love each other, there's room to carry each other, made made me think and reflect a lot about the importance of relationship and community. And judging by the responses, because the email, you should check it out, speaks on that, on being there for each other. Do you have community? And judging by the responses, I realized that a lot of people don't have community, not because they don't want to, but because we're scared. And that is valid and that is okay. But I just feel such an urge to talk more about the need for friends, the need for sisters, the need for people that you can count on. And not everybody has to know everything, but you do need people that you can lean on. And you also need people that you can um step into, step in for when they need you. So, and this is going to tie up my question, who am I outside of my role, specifically at work, is that I've realized that I have such a need and such a love for people, for friends, women, for my mother. I call my mother to get advice on how to navigate situations. And when I'm struggling, I say, Mom, I'm not doing this. And she'll be like, it's okay, navigate it, you'll get it right. And then the next day I'll call her and be like, Mom, I got it right. And, and that is life. I realize I am a girl who just loves other people, who loves having people in her life. I love navigating relationships, complicated as they are. But I love people. I love being a mother. I love being a friend. I love being a sister. I love slowing down. I love my garden. I love my plants. Counted my plants the other day. I have over 26 plants in my house, and they're all alive and they're thriving. But I started with fake plants. Like I was a fake plant mom because I was like, I'm not the kind of person who keeps a plant alive. This is like 4 years ago. 5 years now, 4 years later, I have kept over 26 plants alive and thriving. And that speaks to how much we change. My mom and I planted new spinach in the backyard. My rose bush, I spoke about it at first, that it was completely dead. So my dad and I basically chopped it down, not the whole thing down, but we chopped it where we could, where it was dead, and we worked the soil together. And now I've got roses growing. And it's like, that is who I am. And those are the conversations, the pictures I send my dad. I send my dad pictures of my rose garden flourishing because it was dead and we both didn't know if it's going to come alive, and it did. And those are the things that make me happy. Walking with my kids or even walking alone makes me so happy. It allows me to slow down and to rest and to work on more meaningful things. And even now, as I'm working on Speak Life September, for this year, it's in the moments of stillness, in the moments of rest, it's in the moments of playing when I am in a flight, eavesdropping in the people's conversation behind me, where all these ideas come along. And once again, then I become creative and I become excited about what I do. So, in essence, I guess what I'm trying to say in this conversation is that we get so consumed in pursuing the thing and pursuing the next and pursuing the purpose. And then we get busy and we get in a cycle and then we feel like we're not finding it. But in stopping and in resting and in slowing down and in being present and in switching off and in just being still, being you, being human, nature responds, creativity responds, or at least I have found. So I'm going to leave you with a few things to think about. Who are you outside of your roles? Specifically, the one thing that you hold important. Maybe you find motherhood as very important or in high regard, or your career, or friendships, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You don't have to judge it or anything. What is that one thing that you really define yourself as? And it's beautiful and it works for you. Then consider, who are you outside of that thing or outside of that role? And then ask yourself, when last did I do the things that make me happy? Like if cooking soup makes you happy, when last did you make soup? Or if making bread from scratch makes you happy, when last did you make bread from scratch? Or if doing your garden like me, or taking a walk, or just taking a 30-minute nap. And I'm not talking to the people who nap for fun, which I know a few in my life. But if you just really enjoy a good nap and you haven't taken one in such a long time because life is going fast, can you not take out that time for your nap? And then I'm going to read. Oh, and then the last question is, do I have to live my whole life like this? And I had to answer for myself that no, I don't want to live my whole life like this. I don't want to live my whole life in a rush, chasing deadlines, onto the next, onto this. I don't want to live my whole life like that. Yes, there's seasons where I welcome that and I love that. But for the most part, I want rest and stillness to be a very big part of my life. And then and then we tapped on community. Another question you should ask yourself is, do I have community? Do I have people I can really count on? Have I opened myself up to them? Have I given them the room to open themselves up to me? Is there grace in my relationships? If there isn't, and if there's this awkwardness, how can I be the conversation starter? I spoke about that in the Mother's Day podcast. Like, how can I be the conversation starter? If there's no vulnerability in our home and conversations are awkward, how can I break that? Because ultimately, that's why we have these conversations. That's why we have wisdom and wellness, to learn, to apply this knowledge that we've taken from life, and also to be well. And part of that is to be well in our relationships. And if you're the one who's consuming this, learning all of this, then maybe you're the one to make the difference. If there's hostility in environments, maybe you're the one who has to make the hard decision of saying, okay, I'm going to humble myself and I am going to do the work. And then this quote over this passage, once again from the book, The Things You Can See Only When You Slow Down. If we know how to be content, we can relax our endless striving and welcome serenity. If we know how to be content, we can enjoy the time we have with the person next to us. If we know how to be content, we can make peace with our past and let go of our baggage. And I think that last part is so beautiful, that if we're content, we can let go of our past and let go of our baggage is important, specifically to the part of community and being vulnerable and being the conversation starter. I had to tell my husband, in fact, here's an example. So I love sending videos and quotes and Bible verses to everyone. It's kind of like my love language, and I love doing that. And on this specific morning, I sent him one, and then he didn't respond. And then I felt like this turmoil in me stirring up, like this attitude stirring up. And then I started giving him like attitude. But you know, when you're giving someone attitude and they confused, they have no idea what is happening. And so I'm just going on pouting away. And then I sat down. Here's that rest thing again. And I sat down just to take a breath and exhale. And then I thought about all these feelings I'm feeling inside while Brendan is joyfully walking around the house. And then I called him and I said to him, and this was very hard to say, and I hope it gives you courage. I said to him, when I sent you that video this morning, I wanted to share a moment with you, a moment that I enjoyed, and I wanted to share it with you. And so when you said nothing, I felt rejected. And this makes me build up a wall and have attitude and never want to share anything again with you. And he looked at me and he said, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that that's what it means to you. I thought you were just showing me a video and that's it. And in that moment, that conflict was resolved. But it took everything in me to resolve that conflict, because one, sometimes vulnerability feels embarrassing. Like it feels like you've been rejected and now you kind of have to go beg that same person who rejected you. But that is the nature of relationships. I said it in the other podcast. It's like going to a friend who is going through a hard time, and instead of ghosting them, saying, hey, I don't know how to be there for you. Can you tell me how to be there for you? And it's like you can get rejected in that moment, or it can create a pathway to a beautiful relationship. So when I send you these conversation starters and I'm asking you to put yourself out there and be uncomfortable, it's not because I figured it out and I'm just like, y'all need to do better or you guys have to. No, it's because I'm in the same boat where there's so many moments where I have to take a deep breath, brace myself, prepare to be rejected, but still put myself out there. And more times than not, it is paid off and people then understand better. Like the relationship is so much better. But yeah, it kind of sucks to be rejected, to feel something, want to share it with someone and they don't see it. And then you have to go tell them. But then once you tell them, for them to recognize how much it meant is so beautiful and it resolves things in 5 seconds. Or alternatively, I could have pouted the whole day and he wouldn't have known what's going on. So, yeah, guys, there's just so many things, so many nuances that we have to go through as an adult. Like there's so many things you have to go through as an adult. But like when you sit in it, when you face it and you realize and you learn these things about you and you jump into conflict and you jump into doing the hard things. Konje, my word for the year is addressing the elephant in the room. When you address the elephant in the room, afterwards it's like, that feels so much better and you're so much better for the next. So yeah, that is my catch-up session with you guys. I hope you enjoy it. And I hope you answer the questions that I have shared with you. And yeah, I love you guys. I love you so much. We'll catch up on the socials and maybe I'll make a comeback. Maybe I'll be excited to share on social media again. Or maybe I'll just not and enjoy my life outside of social media and share when I can. But I'm so grateful that I have this podcast, the safe space. I've got Sunday Nuggets, which is such a fun way to express myself in this season. And yeah. All right, I'm outie.